Good day everyone, and thanks for joining me. My name's Nichols, and welcome to the show. You really do need to stop scrolling through your feed. Inspired by Tristan Harris. Scrolling through feeds, whether that news feed or social media feed, or really any feed at all, where you're just seeing that continual stream of information that's novel, that is the hard drugs of the informatic world. You have to avoid this at all costs. And in order to avoid this, you can do several things. One is you should always set your phone as a default on black and white. And as Tim Ferriss said, the reason for this is because most of these things are designed to be addictive in a color. And that's why these phones are almost childlike in the way they're oversized and overcolored to give you that playful aspect. And if you're using them in black and white, that gets around that programming somewhat and stops you being pulled in by the color scheme. Whenever you catch yourself scrolling through a newsfeed without intent, you always need to put your phone down, face down, as the first step. In fact, if you ever find yourself scrolling through a newsfeed without a clear definition of why you're there, in a clearly demarcated time and place for a clear purpose, you need to turn your phone over, put it down on the ground, and that is the first step to mindfully living your life in the real world. And once you've done that, you get up and start moving and get on with your life. You thereby escape the prison of the mind, and thereby escape this race to the brainstem, as Tristan Harris would say, whereby we have this attention arms race, whereby every organization has such an incentive to try and get as much attention from us as possible and as much data from us as possible. And it's called a race to the brainstem. And the way they're doing this is they're directly trying to work out what it is you compulsively want at a very primitive level. So at each moment on your phone, it's up to you to try and outsmart, or to definitely outsmart the 1,000 engineers on the other side of that phone, whose job it is to make sure that you click on that next thing, you scroll to that next thing in the feed. That is their job. It is your job to fight that, to move around that, use whatever tools necessary to regain the attention of your life. This may seem hyperbolic, but did you really think that you could hold this piece of technology in your hand, this demigod-like power of information technology, this supercomputer that everybody has connected to the world's repository of all information, all just created in a couple of decades, and everybody now has a supercomputer? Did you really think that that would have no price? Are you so foolish as to believe that would have no price? And then not only that this price wouldn't be perhaps higher than you should pay. Are you so foolish as to believe that? So the scrolling feed is very much like a poker machine. And what is useful to understand is that, I think as Annie Duke might have said, is that the most addictive thing is an intermittently timed reward. So what happens is you'll scroll through the feed and you're not getting a regular reward cycle. You're getting like an intermittent reward. So you get a reward here, a reward there, a feeling of anger, a feeling of joy, a feeling of self-supportedness, of self-gratification, and then anger, joy. So you're having all these turmoil of emotions and novelty, all at intermittent stages, because not everything in your feed, not every notification bell that you see is giving a reward, but only sometimes. Exactly like the most addictive poker machine on earth, almost as if it were so. So you must carefully set the circumstances upon which you engage in this kind of thing, in which you engage in this newsfeed. It must not be something that you habitually do without thinking. It must be set aside for time and place, ideally on, say, a PC, where it's very, very narrowed and controlled, or perhaps a tablet instead of a phone. But it should always be under times of extreme discipline, because you are really touching the hard drugs on the information world in some metaphorical way, exactly as if you were dosing up on some hard drug in the real world. And sure, the physical consequences aren't exactly the same, but the psychological consequences, of course, can be really quite profound over time. How much of your life are you going to give up to this phenomena of this attention arms race? How much of a victim of the economy are you going to be? And how willing are you to fight? Maybe how bad, you might say, how bad can it be? Well, this is the only life you have. These are the only moments you have. This is everything. The attention of mind is everything. Everything is at stake here. It is of utmost importance that at the end of this video, that you put your phone face down and face your life, and you don't try and escape from it anymore into the internet, into YouTube. It is of utmost importance that you do that. Nothing could be more important to you, because this is all you have. Just this moment in time. You're a mortal, and a mortal only has these brief sparks of existence, And this is all you have. This is everything. And you might think to yourself, oh, this guy's being, quite hyperbolic. How bad could it be? It's just so normal. Everybody does this. Well, look, it used to be normal to smoke. It used to be normal to have cocaine in soft drink. It used to be normal to take a Bex and lie down. It used to be normal for all sorts of things we now know are deeply pathological. It used to be normal to have slaves. It doesn't make it right. Just because it's normal does not make it right. In fact, the mere normalcy of it should also be a warning sign, because you know in your own experience how devastating this can be. You know you've had that experience of trying to escape your life and spending hours soaked up in your social media feed and realize all you've got out of it is a headache and nothing, and just a turmoil of emotions and just a completely wasted afternoon where you should have been up doing exercise or doing something more useful. You know how devastating this can be. And yet it's almost everybody does waste their time like this. So that should be a sign there's something deeply wrong. An analogy can be made to like junk food and refined sugar. The one thing, as Peter Attia would say, that almost everybody universally agrees on is refined sugar is absolutely terrible for you. It's addictive, and it's basically one of the only substances that we routinely eat that is confirmed to kill you over a long period of time. But people have refined sugar all the time. I have refined sugar all the time because it's highly addictive and it makes you feel good. But it's still really, really bad. And I acknowledge that, the hypocrisy of my own mind. I do my absolute best to reduce the amount of refined sugar in my life. Not because I'm a conspiratorialist, but just the evidence is there. It's obvious and explicit. You just need to reduce the amount of refined sugar that you have, regardless of anything else that you do with your diet. That is so important. Almost as important as, say, just being hydrated. It's a universally agreed principle. And it's almost, I'd say, a universally agreed principle that undertaking this dopamine roller coaster of a newsfeed is terrible for your ability to maintain mental health and attention, and is diametrically opposed, absolutely perpendicular to the path that we want, this mindful path of a useful, reasonable life that produces a meaningful existence and a lasting legacy of service in a mindful way. It is not the path, and we know it's not the path. Therefore, you must not walk it. Before you dismiss this out of hand being hyperbolic, ask yourself the question: in this world where we could all almost be gods, where we all have all these tremendous amount of resources, where we should all be living in paradise, how many people are really happy? And if they're not happy, then why? What is it that's destroying them? What is it that stops them being unhappy? And if that answer starts to scare you, we come to realize that this modern society we have has enormous benefits, but comes at enormous cost. If that scares you deeply, then that should be so. Then you are one step closer to understanding how not to fall in the traps of modern society, to not allow this society of plenty with a mind to confront your mind, to overtake your mind, to subvert your mind that is used to a world of scarcity. And then you are one step closer to being on the path. All right, well, thanks for listening, guys. As you can probably imagine from that video, I really, really appreciate your attention. Now put the phone down, face down, change the screen to black and white, and go and do something. Even if just set a 5-minute timer on, say, your smartwatch, do that. I do not want you to be here for this next video for at least another 5 minutes. All right, well, thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one eventually. Peace.